Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
What comic books are you reading?
Well, Kelly, the answer to that changes from day to day. In fact, the question today is, what comic books are you allowed to read? Because when you have a crowdfunded comic, because we were told, you don't like the comics we make your own. And then you find out that you can't talk about those comics. You can't tell people those comics exist. Now you have an entirely new problem. When you can't talk about a comic book on Facebook, when you cannot discuss a comic book on Reddit in the comic book subforum, then folks, we have bigger problems than whether or not DC is making Superboy kiss somebody. And with us tonight, we have the publisher behind Thin Blue Line by Mike Barron, Mr. Chris Brawley. Chris, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks, RJ. Thanks for having me.
Oh, this gets me. This is the kind of stuff that really irks me. I mean, I get, I have a Schadenfreude sort of fun with some of the people who say, oh, you Comicsgate people, you're this or that. I'm like, oh, I'll poke the bear a little bit here. That's kind of fun. Yeah. And that usually takes about 10 minutes before they block me. And then the fun's over. I said, well, that was no fun anymore. You come back. I enjoyed, making you bleed a little bit.
A little tussle.
Yeah, but you've run into a bigger issue than internet trolls here. Why don't you tell your story instead of me telling it for you? And
yeah, let me. So I'll give you my witness testimony about what's happening. So, yeah, I published Bleeding Fool. That's how Mike Barron and I met. And Mike one time asked me to help him run a crowdfund campaign, and I thought I could do it, and we did pretty good. And that was back in 2020. You helped us button that up at the end with your own fulfillment services, RJ. So I should get that out of the way.
Live to serve.
Yeah, but so we did okay on that, and we were doing really good with Thin Blue Line. Mike Barron, in case anyone doesn't know, he's an Eisner Award-winning comic book writer. His heyday was in the late 80s and through the 90s, writing Marvel's The Punisher, their very first ongoing series. They did a 4 or 5 issue limited series at first, and it was so popular that they hired Mike just to write it, and he wrote it for the next 5 years. And that's where Mike kind of made his name in the professional comic industry. He has some incredible creations of his own, like Nexus and the Badger. So Mike is one of these guys. He's done creative-owned comics before, and in 2020 he realized that the rioting that was going on, the mostly peaceful protests that have been going on, and he saw how the police were being disrespected at the time while they were just trying to do their job. So he comes up with Thin Blue Line. It's a great story. Obviously, I've read it several times as we've gone through the script, gone through the art, and so on. And for National Law Enforcement Day, Appreciation Day, back in January, early January 9th of this year, we hit a lick. Mike got interviewed on Fox News, and the campaign was going just tremendous, and still is. I mean, we're running on Kickstarter for a short term, and we're on Indiegogo too on in demand. If you go to thinbluelinecomics.com, you can find it. And we're up to
last I added up, you were 90,000.
Yeah. Mike actually sent me a note shortly ago, said we're 92 as of right now, combined. And and you know, I know a lot of CGers and people like you and I don't really like Kickstarter because there was some gatekeeping going on. But the gatekeeper has left. She quit when they got into NFTs, and we already had some backers from Florida Man, which we also ran on Kickstarter, and so it just made sense to do both. Anyhow, the point of the story was I thought, well, Fox News, that was great. Let's see if we can juice the campaign a little bit more and go back to some venues where we haven't really pushed the book. And I thought, well, first let me check. Well, the first thing I did was I decided, well, we've got 10 days left on the Kickstarter. Let's run an ad on Facebook. And Facebook makes it so easy to target your ads. I mean, you can actually select an age range, you can select gender, you can select what their interests are, what cities they're in, and so forth. And so we had, you know, law enforcement, demographics, people who like the Punisher, et cetera, et cetera. And just we've run a few campaigns on Facebook to, you know, moderate success. But I was really ready to drop a dime on some last, 10 more days of ads, and we had a nice post. And Facebook rejected it. And, they typically, if they're going to reject it, it's an automatic rejection. So you can appeal it. And then we appealed it. And the reason that they rejected it, I want to get this right, it was because it was sensitive subject matter that might alter people's opinions or something. I'd have to look at the article. Jameson,
isn't that everything we ever say to anybody? Is to
can I quote C.S. Lewis? Will that adjust somebody's opinion if I post something from a Christian apologist? I mean, come on, it was ridiculous. And then so I appealed it again, and they said, well, the only way that we're willing to put this, because it's political, because it's about cops, RJ, it's political. Yeah. They said now we have to, if we're going to run it, we have to put up a disclaimer. And if we put up a disclaimer, you have to provide your business documents, licensing, EIN, tax number, yada, 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 driver's license front and back, so we can prove who you are. And I'm like, I've had a Facebook account for over a decade. You don't know who I am and where I live. Give me a break. So I did all that. And then they said, now you have to wait until you receive a letter in the mail with a code. So I'm thinking, we've got 10 days left on this campaign, and you guys are slow rolling us and hassling us. And so I told the guys about it, and they're like, whatever, we'll just push it however else we can push it. And I thought, well, you know what? Let's go back and check out Reddit. Reddit got really pissy about Bleeding Fool in its comic books Reddit subreddit. So right. I stayed away from there because they don't like Bleeding Fool, and I don't care. I mean, I know that Reddit is a bunch of leftist scum anyhow.
I'm surprised it still exists, to be honest.
Well, there are police and conservative-oriented subreddits, right? So instead of going and trying to post some, oh, hey, go check out this book, it's the greatest thing ever, or whatever, I just found an old link from Geeks and Gamers. They've got a subreddit. And it was back when Mike got an interview in the Federalist from, I think, November. And all I did was cross-post it to the comic books subreddit, which has 1.7 million followers, which is an incredible amount of people. And I thought, boy, wouldn't it be great if 1% of this audience would go click and visit it, right?
Yes.
And it was immediately banned, not approved, and locked down or whatever. And the subreddit moderator said it was for misinformation and racism.
That by the way, is a single bullet point. So it looks like a form rejection, but what in the world, how many times can you use misinformation and racism as a single combo together?
It's got to be preset. So, and I don't know if you went and checked out the article on Bleeding Fool about it, but I responded. It says, if you have a question about this, you can ask the moderators. And so I basically said, what is the misinformation and what is the racism? And I got no response other than the notification that I was now muted and banned from communicating with the moderators for 28 days.
Okay, well, fortunately, Chris, we can help you out with that because we have a response on there about the misinformation and racism. And this is from Even Sympathy 657. And let's be totally upfront. That is me.
Oh,
so
okay,
Reddit,
good
if you
deal.
want to get rid of me,
Yes.
I don't care. I don't use you anyway. I created this to ask a question, and you decided to answer. I asked, so there isn't a comic book called Thin Blue Line coming out by Mike Barron? Or was the Latina officer demeaned in some way? Trying to address what's the misinformation and what's the racism. And the moderator, Sick Burn Bro, came out and said, and by the way, no, I'll get that later.
This is news to me. I did not know you had gotten any feedback.
Oh, yes. Well, he went on and quoted from the Fox article, said, since they declared war on the police, homicides are up 100% in every blue city. Rapes, robberies are up 100% in every one of those cities that attack their own police department. Now they have these vaccine mandates. They want to force everyone to get a vaccine. That's what he's classifying as misinformation.
Okay.
Attacking the math, apparently.
Right.
Second block, Mike talking. I talked about how you entertain the audience, but the reader wants to have somebody with whom they can identify. For most people, they think Superman should appeal to everyone. But, and I highlighted, it seems to me, ergo personal opinion, that the majors are hiring writers not based on their accomplishments or abilities to entertain, but to check off boxes on a checklist of certain characteristics that they want to make a point about. That counts as racism on Reddit. And he signs off with, the guy might have created the Punisher. So basically, Sick Burn Bro, you know nothing about comics because Jerry Conway created the Punisher.
Yeah, obviously.
But these days, he just spews alt-right bullshit. There's no place for it on this subreddit. There's no place for facts on this subreddit. So it's eminently ignorable. And
what a loser. Well,
yeah.
There's no racism there. The thing that the Mike is referring to about checking boxes are all of the people that they consider to be or if you're white, straight, Christian, you don't check any of the boxes. It's interesting to me, and this is going to sound racist to the easily triggered, but the only ethnic group that's not allowed to be proud of their own color and race or whatever are white people. And the fact that I point that out, that if anybody would say that's racist of me to point it out, no, the whole system's racist. Mike's not proud to be white. But the thing is these people are proud to discriminate against whites. And I'm not even convinced that Mike was talking about ethnic groups. I think he's talking about, how you have people who are progressives or people who are of the LGBTQ allies and so on. I mean, that's such a wide range of boxes that you can tick. And he's absolutely correct. That's what's going on.
Yeah, there was no, as the meme says, no lies detected in what was posted there.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that's not racism. If Mike had said something that was overtly racist, then okay. But these are things that Mike is saying off the cuff. How is it that these people who need to create a safe space for everyone, it's clear that they don't have any arguments. They have no argument. They have no defense. It's funny that they would say that to you, but why not just tell me that? Why not just say, hey, man, this article's got some racist stuff in it. And then I would have said, well, what? And then he could have said that. And I said, oh, gosh, darn, let's leave that off. Instead, my request, which is in that article, I screenshotted it too, said, what's the misinformation and what's the racism? And did he show you any numbers about those blue cities? Of course he didn't.
No.
Being up 100% means you basically doubled your homicide rates. That's not out of the ordinary. That's not unusual. I mean, good grief, I think it's tripled in some of these states. Let's go to Oregon and check the numbers. Let's go to Michigan and check the numbers. Minnesota. Let's check the numbers. Let's check Illinois.
Well,
I mean, that's
yeah,
the fact is Mike might have been slightly hyperbolic, but he's a fiction writer. What's this guy's problem? His problem is right there in that last sentence. Alt-right bullshit. This guy's a progressive leftist. He's a moderator on this subreddit with over 1.7 million viewers. And I'm telling you that conservatives need to, whatever they got to do, worm your way into these positions of control and power so you can push back. There's an indie comics subreddit run by Pixel Trader of IndieCron. And I had also cross-posted the same thing there. And he said he got multiple flags of people trying to flag it to moderators as misinformation or something or other. And he wound up actually temporarily for a week, banning the person that kept flagging the post. So it's everywhere. And if he weren't there, we would have gotten banned on another subreddit. So how do we stop that? Just like Steve Bannon of the War Room is telling people to get in these precincts, get on these school boards, get in these meetings, get in there, get into these election offices, so you can at least wind up being somewhat of a bulwark against the cancer of progressivism that's just taking over everything. It's completely taken over the entertainment industry. That's what we're dealing with.
And what I was going to say earlier, we hear this phrase a lot on certain videos where it's like, don't talk to these people, don't harass these people, don't do anything. I'm just doing a big. I'm saying exactly the opposite. Because you're not harassing people, you're harassing power. And as long as nobody speaks up to this bullshit, it's going to not only continue, but it's going to succeed. Yeah. So, get out there, make accounts, use NordVPN, use Tor, make multiple accounts, get out there, amplify your voice, whatever it takes to do, overrun this shit.
Well, I think the people that say things like that.
I just lost my YouTube video for that.
No, I think the people that say these things are just trying to protect themselves. They don't want to be accused of targeted harassment, but that's what people like Teenie Howard and everybody else on the left does. I mean, and there's no repercussions for it. So I sort of ignore that. We've got Bleeding Fool, which is sort of the court jester of all these things. We've got writers that just basically poke fun. The Emperor has no clothes, and Bleeding Fool is more than willing to say, you have no clothes, ha ha. We don't do it as good as the Babylon Bee, and we're certainly not as ubiquitous as maybe Bounding Into Comics is these days, but we're doing our part. And I was so thankful. Obviously, I'm not going to go out and brag about Facebook banning our advertisement, right? And I'm not going to go out and brag about another round of liberal lunatics in a subreddit somewhere. But I told Mike about it, and he said, "You know what? Let me just pass this on to John Trent." And so I passed it on to my guys, and he passed it on to his. And next thing you know, the articles are propagating and getting shared, and I think it's a good thing because I think sometimes personally, when it's something that I'm associated with, I almost don't feel like getting into the outrage mode. It's like it's easier for me to get outraged about somebody else's woes. Me, I just feel like I can take the slings and arrows, right? But I think I need to have a different approach, kind of like what you're saying, and maybe we should have been a little louder and prouder about this even earlier. But I think we responded quickly.
Well, because this is not like something that just happened to you today with promoting Thin Blue Line. This has happened when you were looking for publication. When you were trying to go through the standard avenues, so to speak, before crowdfunding it. I think you probably knew you were going to have to crowdfund it, but try them anyway. And you got some horrible responses from
propaganda. All cops are bastards. We're not
off with this.
Agenda. Oh yeah. Well, listen, most of the publishers were polite and some didn't respond at all. To me, that's the most civil thing. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. Right. And I read the script and I told Mike, I said, Mike, this is good. And this is prescient and this is timely. I said, there is a chance that a publisher that's willing to take a risk might pick this up, right? Because we've got interest. We've got interest in more Florida Man with a publisher. So, that's a secret that I'm going to drop right now. But going with Thin Blue Line, to me, the art is great. Not just the Butch and the Sergio cover work and stuff like that, but this is a cop who drew it, right? And his artwork reminds me of classic Savage Sword of Conan, Ernie Chan stuff. And, you know, we reteamed with our same letter from Florida Man, our same colors, Warren Montgomery, Ixan Ansari. They've done solid work. We've only got about 15 pages left to color. All the lettering's done. The book will be done, at least the art and lettering and all that. It's going to have to be assembled into the print files. Will be done when the Kickstarter campaign ends in 10 days, which is, I can't tell you how happy I am about that. But back to what you were saying, I told Mike, I said, man, let's try and pitch this out there because this is nice. Plus, it does tick some of those important ESG diversity elements because this is a single mom, right? This is a woman. This is a minority woman. Her partner's a minority man. This is not, you know, white power or any foolishness like that. There's nothing like that in the book. And it just amazes me at how people make these presumptions about this book simply because they know Mike's a conservative and they know that this potentially, as far as they know, paints police in a positive light. And I can't believe that's the world I'm living in right now. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that cops are going to be considered villains by more people than they're considered heroes, or at least in the popular culture, I would have been stunned. I used to watch shows like The Shield and all that. I mean, who knew that was going to be sort of the perception of our generation right now?
Yeah, it's almost like the 60s again, where, you know, police were, you know, they were called pigs, they were spat on.
Yep.
They were, you know, treated as a fascist sub-army of some sorts. Pops has a good question here. Did you approach Alterna Comics for publication of it?
No, we did not. I have communicated with him a few times, but not about this. That's a good question, though. Peter Sameti's a great guy. Alterna Comics are great. We did, I think, reach out to him on Florida Man. And the only thing that he was willing to offer on that was just sort of he's got a print model for creators. And we didn't want to go with newsprint, even though I love newsprint. Thanks for the question, though, Pops.
Okay, so you know, because of what you knew you would get from your question with Florida Man, you know, basically chose that's not what we want to do with Thin Blue Line. So you looked at the other publishers.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, and that's going back to when you asked about that. When I told Mike, I said we ought to go with the other publishers, he kind of chuckled and said, nobody's going to pick this book up, Chris. And I said, man, it's good. I said, we ought to. And he goes, nobody's going to. I said, I'll tell you what, if they don't, I said, maybe one of them will make an ass of themselves and we'll just, like Pixel Trader said, we'll just hitch our plow to them and let them pull some lines in the garden of the fruit bowl. Yeah, well,
use all their energy.
Sure, why not? And so I guess it kind of turned out that way. Honestly, though, when people are responding to this project you're working on with that kind of vitriol, even though I was sort of prepared for it, it was stunning. It was ugly. It was just ugly. I didn't know what to think.
And I've seen nothing in this project that should trigger people other than the fact we have a good cop.
Yeah. And the thing is there's right-wing militia in this book. There's left-wing provocateurs. There's gangs. It's PG-13.
There's bad cops in it.
Yes. These are people making a judgment call just because there's potential for any heroism to be involved with any cop. And kind of the way we've pitched it too. I mean, you know, it is at the end of it, I think any person who's a policeman or woman or anybody that supports the police are going to love this book. But even if you don't have any knowledge of that, or even if you don't have any kind of, you don't care either way, you just want to be entertained, I think you're going to get that too from this book.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's on Kickstarter. I'm going to go ahead and just bring it up here. I meant to try to bring the video for it, and all I found, my laptop got thrown away, so
sorry about
I didn't have the old video that I downloaded before, and I didn't find out till too late. But this is the Kickstarter that's still open for another 10 days, folks. It's at 36,000 right now. The best way to immediately combat all this pushback from mainstream platforms like Reddit and Facebook is to make this thing as big of a success, so big of a success that it can't be ignored. It can't be memory hold, swept under the rug. So if you haven't backed Thin Blue Line already, this is the time to do it.
I hope they will. And, you know, there's ways to, on both Kickstarter and on Indiegogo, for you to sort of, you can like a project so that, you know, if you don't have the funding in your pocket right now and you might have it on the next payday or whatever, you'll be notified as the campaign is ending on Kickstarter, I know for sure. And you don't even have, you can pledge $1. I mean, if you just want to be a part of something cool, we've been looking at, one thing I'll also announce now that we haven't announced really publicly. We might have put it in one of the updates, but the different tiers for the campaigns was that we were going to give a portion of the proceeds to one is a memorial for fallen police officers. One is assist families and their kids of fallen police officers. And the third one is one that trains officers in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so that they can better protect themselves and the suspects that they deal with rather than using lethal force.
Yeah.
We were so blown away and have done so well with these campaigns that we're not only going to back one police officer for a year's worth of that training, we're going to back 2. And so I'm so thrilled and excited. I can't wait till we announce that officially on the campaigns to our backers. We've just seen a tremendous outpouring of support for this. And I mean, look at that, Art. That's great. It's fun. This is a good action, fun story, and it'll make you, I think it'll make you appreciate what our law enforcement are up against. Now, don't get me wrong. I've been seeing the videos out of Australia. I've seen the videos out of Canada, Austria. I've seen some stuff. You know, I saw the George Floyd thing. There's a lot of things. I saw the kid getting arrested with her parents up in New York City over not having a vax card. I'm seeing a lot of bad looks. Cops aren't perfect, and they do have to answer to the authorities that hire them. But I think a lot of people will be shocked at how many cops are quitting or don't want to quit because they took the job in order to protect and to serve. And so they're very conflicted under this Biden regime and these blue state leaders, man. It's really, it sucks.
Yeah. And you know what, the reason, one of the reasons why you see the videos like that, Mike, is because Mike, you're not Mike. Mike wrote the book. Sorry, Chris. Is because when the police are arresting somebody who needs arrested, nobody's making a video of that and putting it out there. No. Because, you know, nothing to see here. I'm not going to get any clicks off a police officer doing his job.
Sure. Well, I get that too. You know, I mean, it's not like we don't do articles at Bleeding Fool about people doing things the way they're supposed to do them. You know, I mean, it's always more newsworthy when something's out of the ordinary or something's part of the zeitgeist and is exciting and has sizzle. I get it. But I think that this addresses that. This book not only addresses that, but also I think corrects some of it. Being fictitious, though, it corrects the record. I think that Mike had quite an experience when his first wife passed away, where he had to deal with law enforcement in his community over that. And he just earned a all new respect for them that has stuck with him. And my mother worked for the DA's office. I've got a lot of respect for our police, men and women in uniform in my town. And of course, Joe, the penciler, is an active duty officer who served in the 82nd Airborne. So we've got people who appreciate law enforcement created this book. So just like I guess Kelly Sue says, don't buy my book. I mean, if you think this might trigger you, don't buy it. I mean, I'm not inviting you to go to a horror movie to get your get scared. I mean, but if you don't mind being triggered, I guess maybe it's for you. But this is I think this is a one of a kind book. We had that Lady Cop DC comic book cover up there from 1975, and the character, I don't remember her name now, the police officer that's the hero of that book, she actually appeared in the Arrowverse. Not many people know this. The officer appeared in the Arrowverse, but they let me tell you what they did to her. They made her a villain. She was a bad guy. Like she had turned corrupt and had quit the force and was now like working for some radical group. And she was black, and I think she was lesbian. I mean, so that's how they do things these days. So they totally
Liza Warner.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't care. It's almost like, how can we make this character more interesting? I know, let's change their gender or their race, and if they were good, let's make them bad, and vice versa. I mean, we make the villains sympathetic, and we make the heroes villains. It's just it's a clown world, man. So I love the aspect of creators making their own creations, right? And what's great about the internet, about like your live stream here, your video, your website, Critical Blast, Bleeding Fool, even the people who are anti-Comicsgate or Comicsgate, and all this community that's all part of this other universe, this other sort of parallel economy. I love seeing these people making their own books, and I really love it when the project clicks. Like something like this has clicked. With Florida Man, total across Kickstarter and Indiegogo, we raised something like $42,000 or something. Yeah, Liza Warner, that was her name. That's exactly right. And she did appear in Arrow seasons 4 and 5, and she was changed, radically changed. We did about 42,000. We've doubled that with this book, and I think it's only going to get better and better. Mike deserves good press, or at least some respect for how good he is. And I think that a rising tide lifts all boats, and I'm seeing better and better project reception with the programs we're doing on Bleeding Fool, with Indie Comic Showcase, and on and on and on.
Yeah,
Harold's
got a good point here. There's 33 seasons of police doing their job. So
yes.
Yeah, you called me on that one, and you're right. It's the TV show Cops.
Well, I will say that the show did get knocked off the air for a while, and they brought it back after popular demand. They did take Cops off because of the climate a couple years ago, and they just brought it back after popular demand. People just said, "Hey, we want Cops back."
Yeah. And some people are going to say, well, of course those cops are going to be doing, on their toes. They know they've got a camera with them, so they're not going to step out of line. It'll look bad.
Well, that's true. The camera changes people. Camera in the room changes people. My main business is video production, and that's true. It's uncanny how it works, but nonetheless, you did see him get rough with some perps that got rough, and it's fun. I used to enjoy watching that show.
Absolutely. So I don't know where do things go from here. I mean, you guys are getting ready to fulfill this thing in May, probably before May, since you guys are so close to having the print files finished up here.
I will say that we're promising May. My goal, because I know there's people in this indie comics community that are late on what they promised. As a matter of fact, you've done some incredible investigative videos about
not me. One, I did one.
Well, okay, yes, you did, and there was a lot of dialogue in that video. I think it was a live stream, and you were going through a whole lot of them, and others have talked about it too. Even people that don't like me. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Comic Book Hut, but boy, he razzes the hell out of these late projects.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Sure.
And that's fun. There should be people out there that are saying, "Hey, where's my book?" or "Hey, this is late," or whatever. But I get that stuff happens. I mean, things get in the way, and I only took on the Florida Man project because I had myself and John Lemus. John Lemus is you can find him at indie_comics on Twitter. He kicked off the Indie Comic Showcase. It's a weekly, every Wednesday, New Comic Book Day. We feature at least one, but we try to feature 3 crowdfunding or independently published books and just talk to their creators about how to get it and what it's about, yada, yada, yada. So I'd done at least 3 years of that. And when Mike came to me and I said, well, I'll give it a shot. And, I bent your ear. I bent plenty of other people's ears, people that I'd interviewed, and people like John Malin, who was a huge, not necessarily a cheerleader, but he just had a wealth of wisdom because of what he had been doing.
Sure.
and we pulled it off. And it's a gargantuan effort to do this. I mean, that the thing is I don't think people understand when they get into it. If you want to do it right, there's really a lot of moving parts here. And obviously marketing's part of it. Obviously having the book drawn, inked, lettered, colored, and paying those people. I mean, I know some people work for free or they want to get money on the back end, but that's just, you're asking for problems. You also know that Mike and I wound up getting into a legal struggle with one of the creators on that last project, whose name I won't mention, but
contracts happened.
Yeah, we had to have the contract. I'm glad that we did. Gamal Hennessy is our attorney up in New York. He's great, and we prevailed. But it was a struggle session, and the book got delayed because of it. We had to bring in other artists. Not the case here. I want to be known as one of those creators, like a Doug Ernst. Doug and the guys from Iconic Comics, man, they deliver early. They don't even crowdfund anymore. Now they just say, hey, we got a new book. It's ready. We're taking orders now. I don't know if we want to get to that, because I kind of like the thrill of the chase, the thrill of the hunt. I kind of like the crowdfund platform, and it is an easy way to sort of keep your information all organized, even though I wish Kickstarter was more like Indiegogo, and I wish Indiegogo was more like Kickstarter. Maybe they can just fine.
It take the best of both and just have like an indie starter.
But you've given so much good advice. I know we've talked about doing sort of a series on teaching creators not necessarily all the steps on how to do it, but also some pitfalls too, and different options. There's all kinds of printers out there. There's API, there's Mixam, there's Print Ninja, there's others.
I'm trying to get track of the printers, and I'm right now, I'm doing a new thing, expanding a service. I can only do this one campaign at a time, but Pedro Eng is running his Tropical Magics campaign. He's taking the mailing list for that thing now, where you sign up for more information to gauge interest. He's in Brazil, so he can't run an Indiegogo. So guess who's, running that? So, and really all it is, we're just setting it up. We'll have to, set up a place for the money to go, because that's the real reason they can't run it there. Right. And then, we'll pay him the money out of that thing and say, okay, you take all the money, you send us money back for shipping. It'll be a back. It'll look like, it'll look so funny. It'll be like, I'm giving you the money. Well, I'm giving you some of the money back. Okay, well, now I'm giving you this part back. But it's the best way to keep it all straight and on the up and up and transparent.
Oh, you've got to. Even like right now, I just sent out 1099s to all the people that, we gave more than $600 to for work on the book. And I think that the overseas, some of the talent, a 1099 doesn't do dick. I mean, there's no point in it. You have to just kind of list those expenditures as cost of doing business. And you definitely want to keep everything on the up and up. You definitely want to keep everything clean. And you definitely want things discussed in advance, right? You don't want there to be any surprises. And sometimes we're not trailblazing anything in here. I mean, comics have been crowdfunded now for what, 10 years? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know what the first one was, but I'm sure it didn't go over well. And I'm sure the first campaign ever probably didn't succeed,
I crowdfunded a comic in 2015.
Really?
Yeah,
did it was on Kickstarter.
Well, it must have, because I got it.
And well, you backed one. You didn't create one. You backed.
No, I didn't. I didn't create it. I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't mean to imply that. But it was a Shazam-like character. Dang if I can't remember the name of it. Harrenberg will know it because he knows everything. But it was a Shazam-like character whose human alter ego developed cancer.
Oh yeah.
So,
wow.
so the hero didn't have cancer, but every time he turned back, he was, back to having cancer. And the creator,
like Lady Thor. Just kidding.
Oh, the creator did it because he was trying to raise money for his cancer treatments.
Oh wow.
So I'm going to throw money at that. Of course. But he had a Jerry Ordway cover. So wow. he had yeah, he had people involved in it. And it's tucked away in a long box now somewhere at home. Uh, I'll remember it later when the show's over. Like, oh
Sure.
yeah, that was the name of it.
Sure. You know, Harrenberg brings up something else. The previous campaign, it wasn't necessarily run by RJ, but I will say that RJ provided an extremely valuable service of helping us organize our data for us to get our mailing labels together. RJ turned me on to, listen, if you guys aren't using Critical Blast for this sort of fulfillment and you're going to do it yourself, I'll tell you, one of his secrets is called Pirate Ship.
Yeah,
If
Pirate
you
Ship is
can,
awesome.
Pirate Ship is the way to do your shipping. You will not find a better shipping platform. And you basically give them your credit card and you enter in the mailing label info, and you can either print it off on your little thermal printer, or you can print it off and then tape it to the package. We bought a thermal printer. It's just easier. But if you've got a whole spreadsheet with the addresses, man, you can upload that to Pirate Ship, and man, it's ready to print 1,000 labels if you've got that many people. It's incredible.
Chris, did you know that you can add extra columns to that to override things?
You told me that. You did tell me that. So we're going to play with that again on this next one, even if I have to make another marmalade video for you.
Well, I've gotten even faster now with
that's
turnaround
wonderful news.
because the one thing that we did do for you, I don't want to overplay it because we came in at the end and kind of helped out, but was the grouping of items.
Yes.
So that you can get everything together and say, this is group A, this is group B. I still learned something from that one because I still didn't do that one quite right. You had item 1, 2, and 3 was one group, and then we had item 1, 3, and 2 was another group because I didn't sort. If I'd have done that, I'd had them together.
Yeah.
But that little item group that I was assigning each thing in the SQL code that I had written, there's a field on the Pirate Ship upload called rubber stamp.
Yes.
And I put that as rubber stamp 2. So like rubber stamp 1 would say Florida Man, rubber stamp 2 would say group A.
Yeah.
So when I upload the spreadsheet now, I used to just say, okay, these are all the same, make a spreadsheet, upload them, print them out. Now I just no, keep them all in the same spreadsheet, sort them by the groups, put the group in the rubber stamp 2, and then I will say, and it's 13 by 10, and it's 0 pounds and 14 ounces, and I'll have them all exact, and then it just overrides one spreadsheet. I'm like, this is the project right here. When it says 100% delivered at the end, I send that over.
That's beautiful. I think you worked out a couple of little kinks with the Florida Man so that you could get up to where you're at, because that was flipping a year ago when we were shipping Florida Man, or about 10 months, really. Yeah, about 10 months, maybe around April. Could have been 9 months. But you worked out a lot then because I had set up the campaign kind of funky too. I think that's a key that they don't really explain that to you on the front end. There's really not sort of a step by step on how to set up a campaign. I
just used that example with somebody too recently because I was like, hey, you need to do this. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll do that. But what you're talking about there was you had tier 1, just for example, was, hey, get the book. And then tier 2 was get the book autographed. But autographed was only mentioned in the name of the tier. You still had the item itself. And it's
just a book, because on the back end, whenever you have these tiers, you tell that back end, what does this include? Well, it includes a book, but I didn't say it includes an autographed,
which would have been a separate SKU.
Right, a whole nother item. Yeah, as you're creating your items, you have to designate what these things are, and I didn't know any better. There was no way to even. I mean, obviously there was a way. I just didn't. I overlooked it. I mean, it was an oversight, and I think that's interesting. I think that what you're doing right now, RJ, and maybe even part of this discussion, is going to make the next independent comics creator do better.
Okay, Harrenberg found it. The Mighty Titan. Yes.
Okay. Nice.
Thank you. My brain is going.
Is Harrenberg your mod? Because that's some on point.
He's one of my mods, and that's why he's one of my mods. But you know what? We talked about late campaigns, and I had always held a level of forgiveness for late campaigns in development.
Yeah.
Because I don't create. I'm like, okay, you can miss by 6 months because you don't know, something's going to happen. But now that I'm seeing, like campaigns that are like, hey, the books are all here, and 3 months later it's not fulfilled. Now I'm pissed off because I do know what goes on there, and there is no excuse for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
it's tough when you see guys. Well, it's tough when you see these guys doing live streams and knowing your stuff's late, right?
Yeah. And I know that some of them are doing exactly what I was telling you in the beginnings. Like, they're getting their spreadsheet and you're like, okay, who's the first guy on here? Oh, he's getting this, this, and this. Let's make that. Let's print a label. Let's put it in the box and put it over. I'm like, that's 5 minutes of doing all that. And that's if you're fast at it.
Well, I just wonder if it's just that the information needs to get out there, right? Because I think even these folks that are super late, that are talented, that I know a lot of people have backed them and they want that project, I'm sure that part of it is they don't know every single aspect and step. Do you know what I mean? It's like even people who are spending the time on the research are doing it. And I'm not necessarily a creative, right? I'm not sitting here illustrating a book every day. Creatives have a different mindset. They think differently. They approach things differently, and they're just trying to create their thing. Have you ever seen someone who's a creative craft artist person that really runs a business good too? Because you got to have management. You have to have project management skills. You have to have look into all these different vendors and fulfillment. People are talking about stickers and books and boxes and
they're just trying to make it look cool. They're not thinking about what it takes to actually make that happen.
A lot of logistics. A lot of
project management was part of my degree program. So,
well, and here's the thing: you're a professional, so you have amateurs that are sitting here thinking about strategy. Amateurs think about strategy. Professionals think about logistics, right? Yeah. Because they're going to do it. Let's go ahead and work out how we're going to do it. Not, let me think of all these different strategies that I need to come up with. Let's do it. And we have an advantage with our campaign because we've already successfully fulfilled, right? Exactly. So now I already have all these vendors, right? And I'm one of these, I hate to say a skinflint or whatever, but I don't want to overspend. You have this sort of mindset. You want to give the customer great quality, right? But you don't want to overspend for great quality. You want to make as much profit as you can. And in a project like this, you got 3 creatives. You got the inker, the penciler, and Mike that all have to get a split. Plus I get a little kitty. And so the more that I can save, the more we all get to make, right? But I do not want the quality to suffer just because we want to make more money. Because we could go cheaper. We're going to spend probably 30% more than the cheapest options. Because
Chris, I need to interrupt you.
Yeah, bro.
I need to interrupt you because I was going to tell you that while we were talking, you crossed the $37,000 line. But also now, since I put that in my head, you've now crossed the 500 backer line.
Aha, that is a great number to hit, my friend.
This is we got to play the shake and bake moment now.
It's shake and bake, and I help.
So thank you to whoever was out there that did that.
Listen, that reminds me of a clip. I'm going to get sidetracked for a second. If you remember the Little Rascals, Alfalfa was in love with a girl named Darla, and he had a friend named Spanky, and they would always put on these singing variety shows or whatever. And they were doing one, and Alfalfa decided he wanted to be a crooner. He didn't want to do these vaudeville shows with them. And so he was going to save his voice, and he was going to go find a guy to teach him how to be a crooner or opera singer. He didn't want to be a crooner. He wanted to be an opera singer. That's right. Well, he's practicing so hard. He comes back to Spanky's little play and takes a nap in the back. He's so tired. I don't want to be no crooner. I'm singing opera. Well, he falls asleep, has a dream that Spanky's got one of these big shows, a big nightclub, and it's all the rage. And he's homeless because the guy that he's working for is like a Svengali that only lets him sing Barbara of Seville out in the streets because he's terrible. Oh, and he goes and he sees Darla, and she's a singer there, and she says, I'm doing so well here as a singer. You should come be a crooner. And he goes, well, how much money are you making? She goes, oh, I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as a little kid, when I heard her say hundreds of thousands of dollars, That
But
has,
that's not a real number.
I thought that's an incredible amount of money. Now we talk about trillions and billions and even millions,
Oh yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. I just always thought it was so cute the way Darla said that. And I had a little bit of a crush on her, if I
Oh
confess.
well, who didn't? Yeah, when
You
we were little
playing that
kids.
little clip reminded me of Darla. That was sweet.
Yeah, Hal Roach was a genius. I've got the entire Little Rascals set on in a big thick box of DVDs.
Oh man, yeah, it's good escapism right there. Good clean fun. Good clean fun. Hey, I wonder
Right.
what the Indiegogo's at. Let me.
501 backers for Kickstarter right now, by the way.
It's going up. It's looking good. I love it. I love it. Man, Mike his wife Ann. Have you ever met Ann on a live stream or anything?
I have met her on a live stream. Yes,
she is so sharp, and she has run other Kickstarters for him. But I think she's just so proud to.
57,700 because I don't even have to look for it. I just hit Indiegogo.com and it's the second thing on the page.
Oh, I'm betting John Malin is number one.
No, number one would be two giant-sized two-fisted manly tails.
Hey, I've got that one open right now. I'm thinking about getting in on that launch day thing. I think everybody ought to. That's Graham Nolan's next big book.
Yeah. Thin Blue Line is right between Two-Fisted Manly Tales and Magic Cop 2 from the Zaid brothers.
Hey, Magic Cop. Man, such great creators. And you know what the fun part for me is that I know these guys.
Yeah,
or at least I'm familiar.
That is cool. I can say I know Mike Barron, and they can have him on here. Holy cow! I just looked at your Thin Blue Line. And it's not only that you got 57,700, you've got 1,110 backers.
I know.
Man, I wish I was doing more than just mailing labels for you guys.
Is that crazy? You know what?
That's insane.
Let me tell you what. Really, today is it's good that this is getting some attention and putting people over. But we released a secret perk. It's now available on the website too, of an art version where there's no colors. It's all inks, pencils. It's slightly larger. It's a hardback. It's some extra pages. There's actually going to be some art in it that's not included in the trades. It will also be the inked versions of the variant covers. I mean, it's going to be so nice. And the books are costing us I don't like how much we're spending for them, but they're all going to be autographed inside, and I'm just so thrilled. And man, we've sold nearly 200 of those.
Oh, I hope it's the Mike Barron name pushing it, because
I do too.
Because we're going to have an Indiegogo in about 2 months here, Chris.
What's the project?
The project. Well, last year we did a year and a half ago we did an anthology novel called The Devil You Know, which was all short stories. Fantasy, comedy, science fiction, whatever you wanted to do, as long as it was somebody encountering Old Scratch in some sort of a fashion. And it went so well that we said we're going to do it again. And we've got The Devil You Know Better. I've already got the cover set up. It's a tweak on the original cover. And Mike Barron is going to have a short story in this.
Nice.
As will Hart Fisher. So what we're going to do is we're going to crowdfund a special edition of it, which is going to be the book itself.
Yeah.
Nothing special about the book, but it's going to come with a signature card with Mike and Hart signing the same card. And it'll be a sticker. You'll be able to peel it off and put it on the book if you wish, or you can keep it with the book.
Oh, I like that.
However you want to do it.
It's inside the cover.
Mailing all the books back and forth.
I like that idea, RJ. When are you planning to launch?
Probably in March, end of March, early April.
So now it's prose or it's illustrated too?
It's all prose,
okay,
except for Hart's piece, which will be poetry.
I used to love, I don't know why, you got some people that are just anti-anthologies. Some people. I love them. I mean, I liked Stephen King had several anthology books. Yeah. I loved them. Even that giant-sized two-fisted manly tales, that's an anthology comic. I mean, that's got Chuck Dix and Mike Barron.
Thumb through it, find a spot, start reading.
Yes. Well, and what I like about it is, you get these guys. Let's take YouTube videos, for instance. This video is going to be about an hour at the end of it. And some people are going to see this in their subs and go, well, I don't have time for that.
Right.
But they'll grab that 6-minute video from Eric D. July, right?
Yeah,
or
he's good at cutting things out and putting them out as another video.
Well, but he also does long form. I mean, he does long stuff. If you do listen to his podcast or you subscribe, he's got long ones, but not everybody has time for that. And I think anthologies are perfect for that. If you've got a bookmark, and you better have a bookmark on your campaign,
I will
RJ,
have a bookmark.
because bam, I just finished this 8-page, 6-page, 5-page story, and I'll be ready for the next one.
Yep, they already gave us the people who did the artwork for the cover. They said, hey, for an extra $5-10, we'll do your banner and your bookmarks. So I've got the bookmark file all ready to go. I just got to know how many to order.
What is your publishing company? Have you got a name for that?
Critical Blast Publishing.
Okay, simple enough.
We were Critical Blast Publishing before we were Critical Blast Logistics.
I didn't know that.
So,
how about that?
Yeah, 2018 we did Gods and Services.
Okay.
Which was a little pop-up shop with a letterboard sign that looks like it's supposed to say goods and services, and one of the O's fell down. That's on purpose because they really do sell gods. And you walk in, you buy something, and you walk out, and there's a god attached to whatever you bought. And since you've made an offering, the god is now entitled, or rather obliged, to make your life better, whether you want him to or not.
Little G God. Little
G God.
Sure.
And when you go back, the store's not there anymore. Sometimes there isn't even the space for the store to exist. so that was fun.
It's sort of a Needful Things angle.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, the old curiosity shop is a trope in fantasy fiction.
Love it.
And then after we did that, we did Bulletproof, which is the first in a series of YA superhero novels. That was not an anthology. That was a full-blown, all the way through one story. By Stephen J. Mitchell, and we have that in hardcover, softcover, and ebooks on Amazon. And then we did The Devil You Know. So we just kind of kept on moving.
Are you doing POD through Amazon now with those books?
No,
Okay.
I don't go POD through Amazon. I go POD through Ingram Spark.
Okay. I've been looking for a POD possibility for another graphic novel coming up. I'd like to know which ones suck so I could avoid them and which ones might be good. I can imagine prose is a little easier to get consistent quality from, and it's just more consistent, and not more consistent.
It's the same thing because guess what? It's still an image now that you're digitally publishing.
Okay.
You have to send a PDF with the font embedded, and it has to be of a certain type in the metadata so that they can just stamp it onto the page.
Yeah.
Because it's not printed where it like wraps at the edges of the page. I know this because I sent them a 6x8 and told them it was a 5x7, and they just totally ran the words right off the top and sides of the page. And we.
Do they send you a test copy first?
Yeah. Well, they will send you a test copy if you order one. Okay. I looked at it online and I'm like, yeah, this looks right. Online wraps. So that sucks. So, whether it's text or graphic novel is almost irrelevant as long as they can do colors because it's an image either way. But the thing I did learn and why I go with Ingram Spark rather than POD through Amazon, if you go through Amazon, you get that, free ISBN. And when you take that free ISBN, because it's free, it's not yours. It's theirs. They own the book. Yeah. They own the ISBN. So it's worth it to me to go through Ingram Spark and spend like $40 for setup, $80 for an ISBN, all the money for the printing, just to say it's our book. And that's why, when you find it on Amazon now, it will say in the book information, publisher, Critical Blast Publishing, not publisher, Amazon EPUB.
Right. Yeah. You don't want that. Well, listen, I know we're getting into a discussion where a lot of people are going to feel like a lost ball in tall weeds.
Yep. We're not publishing books. We don't care. Tell us about this comic.
Yeah.
505 backers, $37,407. Chris,
man, this is amazing. To the moon while we're watching it. I love it. This is great. It just means I'm going to have to buy a whole bunch of books.
Yes.
We're going to do it, though, man. This is going to be so fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
$250 just went up on the Indiegogo while we were talking here.
Awesome.
This thing is a freight train, and it's just gathering steam while we're sitting here watching it. This is crazy. So,
oh my gosh, I got to tell you something. So National Law Enforcement Day was January 9th, and Fox News, based on a press release I had put out, contacted Mike to do an interview with him that morning on Sunday, National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
yeah.
I had to go to church. I run the live stream at church, so I worship Jesus. I love the Lord and all that. So I'm at church, but I've got the live stream. But I also opened up the Kickstarter page and filmed it with my phone, because every 3 or 4 seconds the number would just go up. I mean, that tapered off obviously later that afternoon, but we probably raised $22,000 off that appearance.
It was like the old Jerry Lewis telethon. Just
It
watching
was,
the symphony
that's a
roll.
good one. Yes, that's exactly what it was like. I was just so tickled because at the beginning of this, you know, I'm a praying man too. I really wanted this thing to do well. I really wanted the guys who put all this labor into it to be rewarded for it. Because unlike, you know, I know a lot of these campaigns, you know, let's just get a few pages out there. Let's get the cover. Let's get the elevator pitch and see if we can raise the money. Because if we can't raise the money, I don't want to do all this work. And I totally understand that. Don't get me wrong. It's rare for a creative team to have already completed the book, right?
Yeah.
You've seen that, RJ. I know you have. Often it's written. Usually the whole thing's written. There may be some revisions due, as most comics are, but the artwork is rarely ever done all the way through. And with this one, it was. When I flew out to Colorado and met Mike, I also met the penciler and the inker. It was almost all done then, and by May it was all done. We didn't launch the campaign till October. We did Indiegogo October.
Because you were waiting for the Florida Man stuff to finish up and be fully. We
wanted Florida Man to be off our back, and also I wanted to have other assets. We use Warren Montgomery as our letterer. He's great. He's fast. I wanted him to letter a few pages. I wanted to really know what the guys were into and how we wanted to approach it. And I kind of did want, that's true about the Gatekeeper at Kickstarter. I mean, you can do Kickstarter, guys. You can even do Kickstarter first and then go in demand on Indiegogo if you want. They're like cousins now.
Yep, that's the way they do it. And in fact, you can start Kickstarter, roll the money from Kickstarter over to Indiegogo, and automatically be fully funded on Indiegogo and a project we love and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. I would love to kind of explore all these options, because I don't want to just keep doing these campaigns with Mike. I'd really like to be able to kind of pass this knowledge and wisdom on to other people and see more of it. You know what I mean? I know you do. I know that I do. And there's others like us that have kind of got these experiences and knowledge. I want to see it. At the end of the day, though, if the artwork sucks, you're not going to do great.
Yeah.
Is that
absolutely.
what we're at right now?
If you add them up, you were at $95,358.
Praise the Lord.
You're less than $5,000 away from cracking that $100,000 mark. So
man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so pleased. So pleased. But at the end of the day, if the artwork sucks or it's a story that doesn't appeal to anybody, it's not going to do great. I recommend anybody doing their first crowdfund to really explore all their options and what it's going to cost minimum for them to publish a couple of 100 books and ship them out. Yep. And don't do, the reason you see guys like John Malin or Ethan Van Sciver or Richard C. Meyer or guys that have gotten a huge following on YouTube or already have an established name for themselves, they'll do a $500 or less goal because they're tricking the algorithm and getting a boost, and it's just fun because they know they're going to hit the number and they're going to hit it quick.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that as an indie creator, because if you say, oh, let's do it at $500 and then you raise $505,
you're committed to it then.
Yeah, you're committed, or you're going to embarrass and humiliate yourself. You don't want to.
What's even worse is if you do a $500 flex goal and you make $30.
Oh my gosh!
You're still committed.
Yeah, you're committed. So you got to be smart about how much you charge. The guys and gals that are doing $25 a book, I know you get grousers that say, oh, that's way too much for a flipping 60-page book or 50-page or 80-page or whatever, right?
Then don't buy it.
That's right. This is a boutique. This is a niche these are the rarest comics out there. I mean, DC will print 5,000 copies of a book. Most of these books aren't even 5,000 copies.
This is the equivalent of, you know, getting a custom made tuxedo versus going a off the rack suit at Walmart.
That's right. This is artisan. This is boutique publishing. This is niche, and it's rare. And who knows? One of these, you know, Hollywood is already strip mining DC and Marvel and on and on and on. Eventually, they're going to start strip mining these indies, and they'll look at the ones that achieve some sort of notoriety or at least fulfilled. So be smart when you set up your campaign. Count the cost, like it says in the Bible. Count the cost before you do any endeavor. Find out what the cost is going to be, and then set accordingly. And you know what? If you email me at contact@bleedingfool.com and you have a couple of questions, don't hammer me and don't expect the response back within 48 hours. But if you've got a couple of questions, you know, I'd be happy to respond. And if you've got a project that if you have a crowdfund that you have launched, it is active or it is imminently active. I know Pops Van Zant's got a project coming up in March. I said, Pops, hit me up in late February, early March. We'll get you in the Indie Comic Showcase. We love to feature indie creators in that weekly showcase. We don't charge anybody for that, but you just have to answer some written questions and have some images available, and you know, we'll try and signal boost it. We've been doing it for years. I think it's probably the best aspect of Bleeding Fool is the fact that we give attention to these independent creators. That's where I come from. I used to do it with musicians, and I just love art. I love creative people. We don't all have to get along. I like Trump. You can like Bernie. I don't care about your politics. Just don't hate mine. I won't hate yours. Don't hate mine. Let's just appreciate one another's work, our humanity, and stop making everything about identity politics. That was what the whole thing was with Mike, is the identity politics come first and then the merit comes second. That's the complaint. That's the complaint.
I keep learning this lesson over and over again, and it never sticks. But there's better success to be had in the niche than in the mainstream, especially with running a website like Bleeding Fool or Critical Blast, because I would do things like, you know, looking back at history, like, oh, the next Harry Potter movie is out. I want to make sure that my review of that film is timed to go off at midnight on the day that the embargo is released, so that, you know, and you know what? It just got buried under it because everybody else is doing it. But if I do a review of some indie film that's got like a cult following of the actors in it, I'll get 25,000, 30,000 people because they can't find reviews of that film anywhere else. So they come to me, or they, you know, to the few people who did cover it.
Right. It's niche. Well, and people are looking for more than just, I mean, there's so many, you can go to Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, IMDb. I mean, you can get the same sort of reviews and news at all the places. And, you know, I have to confess, I mean, we do too. I mean, we're talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, right?
Sure.
But we're doing a little more than that, and you definitely are too. And I think that, what's the old Latin proverb? Fortune favors the bold.
Oh yeah.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Exactly. So,
and I appreciate people like you and people like some of these creators out here that are willing to, you know, put their art out there. Just do it, you know. And on the other hand too, if you've got a creative idea, you should put it out to people that you trust. I mean, there needs to be accountability, but also mentorship, apprenticeship, and you being willing to take feedback on your stuff. Not everybody's cut out for this. I mean, I can draw, but as soon as I found out how cheap comic book artists got paid back in the 90s, I said, no, this isn't for me. Then I also found out they had to do at least 22 pages a month. And I'm like, man, I couldn't do that in a month. You know, I wasn't cut out for it. I wasn't cut out for it. I don't even think my art was good enough.
When I got out of school, I wanted to teach, but then I realized I wanted to eat more. So
yeah. I mean, you got to really look into these things that you want to do. I think that's the lesson here. Make sure you can pull off what you think you can pull off. So.
All right. Well, Chris, I'm going to let you go here. I'm going to rephrase.
No Marmalade appearance? What? I don't get a Marmalade appearance?
Well, Marmalade, 58,109. I'm just flipping out here.
So thrilled.
Marmalade's been watching YouTube.
Oh, is he under the? Oh, okay.
And I don't know. He's taking advice from all the wrong people because he's okay. You can show him.
Is Joe King?
This is how you do it. This is how you get views on Twitter and on YouTube. You gotta hit gotta hit the note licker and you gotta hit the NAS gun. And all you comic nerds out there, you all suck. Yeah.
Okay. Go back.
Somebody's been watching The Hut too many Hut videos. What I think.
Oh. Well, he thinks that he's going to get more views doing that. I don't know. So we'll see what he pulls off.
Straight marmalade out. Yeah.
Maybe he'll do another music video sometime.
Oh,
Chris,
I'd love to help, brother. Hey, RJ, appreciate it. Love your audience. Love your crowd. Love these backers. Love indie comics, and just love being a part of this.
As I said, I don't have a show if they don't come. So, guys, appreciate you being here. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.